41 early hidden secrets and details you missed from Deltarune Chapter 3. Number 1. The couch is the last place we see Susie and Chris before the dark fountain engulfs the living room, and it's where Chapter 3 kicks off. Interestingly, at the start, the couch is asleep, and Chris gets the option to sleep on it again. This is actually a way to skip the intro, taking you straight to World of TV Time, the game show area hosted by Tenna, the chapter's main antagonist. If you decide to save or go to another room and then come back, the couch will wake up and slowly walk off screen. It's because it's the same couch Tenna uses for his challenges, so sleeping on it warps you to the games, though obviously this only works if you've already been in the chapter once. Number 2. It's now confirmed by Rolsei himself. Dark World characters are objects from the Light World. The explanation is that dark fountains, which make everything darker than dark, create an alternate vision of reality, an illusion. For example, Lancer is the Ace of Spades, Queen is a high-spec laptop, Jeevel is a Joker card, and Seam, one of the vendors in Castletown, is a stuffed animal. While Rousei's original object is still a mystery, some think he could be a plushie, especially since when Susie throws him in the water, his official and for sale on Fangamer plush appears. Antenna, he's Chris's living room TV. Number 3. Speaking of him, Mr. Antenna is packed with references. For starters, he uses pre-rendered sprites, just like the iconic Donkey Kong Country, giving him a faux 3D look with volume and lighting effects on his sprites. A first for a Toby Fox game character. Tenna's dance animations are taken from the Mixamo website, specifically the silly dancing and swing dancing animations. Number 4. He also makes tons of parallels to TV Dinna from the 2009 game Little King Story, created by Yoshiro Kimura, a friend of Toby's who playtested Deltarune. Papyrus even mentions him. Mettaton also draws some inspiration from this character. The resemblances range from the obvious TV head design, his outfit and costume changes, and the use of similar iconography from old cathode ray TVs, like a technical difficulty screen. Both Tenna and TV Dina transform themselves and the protagonist into 8-bit versions and reference retro video games. Plus, they both offer the protagonist a cooking trial, just to name a few things they have in common. And some sequences that repeat on the TV screens are direct references to Dinna's sequences. Number 5, he also makes plenty of nods to Earthbound, one of Toby's biggest inspirations, like the sound effect from Earthbound, which plays every time Tenna says names. If you try to name Chris Cree, he'll say, well, don't Cree until the ending, folks. Very similar to Mother's tagline, no crying until the end. Other name interactions include Susie laughing if you type ass, and if you use sus, he'll say it's confusing. Number 6, if you try to type something like the letters will disappear to make it impossible to abbreviate. Something similar happens if you type WD, the G vanishes. And if you try to force it by editing game files, Tenna will just put up the technical difficulty sign and change the name. Number 7, Tenna makes them play TV Time, The Legend of Tenna, a direct homage to several games in the Legend of Zelda series, primarily drawing inspiration from Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons. The Power Croissant is a humorous reference to the Power Bracelet due to its visual similarity in the 8-bit graphics of the Game Boy Color Zelda games, where both items lift and throw pots. It also alludes to the croissant Muffet sells in Undertale, which she mistakenly thinks is a power bracelet. The entrance to the secret fan mail room is almost identical to a puzzle in the first dungeon of Chapter 1. Number 8. When Susie grabs one of the keys, the shopkeeper yells, "Thief." This is similar to what happens in Link's Awakening if Link steals from the shop. He's called Thief forever. The music that plays when Lancer is digging is called Dig 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 to the center of the earth, which comes from a line Marin says in Link's Awakening. And although there's a health bar, if you lose all your health, Tenna just deducts points. If you run out of points, he says the punishment is watching Chris play. And if you mess up a puzzle, Susie will throw the controller at Chris, and Rossei ends up solving it. Number 9. In every chapter, Toby has literally left a hidden egg. These are optional collectibles always given by a man behind a tree, hiding his identity. This time, they're a bit harder to find. In one of the hidden 8-bit games, you have to throw a box across a river. Then you need to go to Nowhere, a place a zapper can take you if you select that it's a hacker. There'll be a couple more games, and eventually you reach a Mumble who claims Nowhere is somewhere else and gives you a pass. On returning, you'll battle a Ribic Rousey who has a Croak on X option, which makes the party escape into an 8-bit game. This world has tons of details we'll save for the Chapter 3 Curiosity series. But the important thing is we find another tree. The man will call himself the Forgotten Man. If you tell him you won't forget him, he'll say he's just a man and explain explain that the whole world used to look like this, before the dinosaurs, though hybrids like Suzy still exist. He claims it's the only place he can maintain himself, but knows it will soon be destroyed. If you tell him you'll see him again, he gives you the third egg. Number 10. Before his game show starts, Tenna lists the potential winners' prizes: a cowboy shower curtain with flowers, a family car from Icy's company, the FNAF parody, which he misspells as family, meaning famous, a talkback toy that belongs to Azrio, hair-catching drink protectors, chocolate rolls, and a Rousey plushie. Number 11. If you were disappointed about not winning any of those despite beating Tenna's challenges, there's a way to steal them. Near the final battle, you can return to the walls of screens. One of them will have a green screen and Tenna's smile. Interacting with it opens a bonus zone with all the prizes, which the Pippins will then take full advantage of, looting literally everything. Number 12. The resemblance between Spamton and Tenna is pretty obvious. Not only were they both tricked by a mic nobody has seen, but Tenna even says one of Spamton's lines and asks if anyone remembers the verse. It even seems like he's been expecting him and had a spot ready for him in the dungeon of the first Legend of Tenna game, as he mentions a mailman was supposed to show up. Number 13. In fact, you can actually get them to reunite. If after leading Tenna's prize bonus room, you have Spamton's post-battle item equipped, one of his Pippins will come out of Tenna's storeroom lamenting having no one to help. Spamton then pops out of your inventory, thrilled someone cares about him. Though Tenna seems surprised by his appearance, he ends up acting like he doesn't know who Spamton is and attacks him to defend his Pippin. The amazing Alex Rochon, famous for voicing Kane from the Amazing Digital Circus and doing Spamton fan dubs, even gifted us this scene with voices for everyone.
Trashy! You kept it! You really do care!
Number 14. When we give Sean the shadow crystals from the first 2 chapters, he claims the next one can only be obtained with the shadow mantle, but says he had it and can't find it. And sure enough, the roaring knight who carries the crystal is impossible to beat unless you equip the mantle to Suzy or Chris. Without it, a couple of attacks will end the battle. Number 15. To get the mantle, you need to follow the sword route. This means getting S rank in Tenna's rounds, which gets you into an S rank exclusive room. This lets you access a very peculiar game where you have to find a sword and raise its LV, level of violence, like an Undertale, by killing all the NPCs on the map. Leveling it up lets you destroy cacti, blocking the path to a new, differently colored area with other NPCs like a sunflower. Destroying everyone here gives you the ability to destroy trees and lets you find the ice key. After passing round 2, you'll have to go back and the game will have a new map where you basically do the same thing until you get a raft and reach an area with frozen water leading to a door. Eventually, you find a sprite representing Noelle, and with her you freeze NPCs to open paths by using them to press buttons. Then you'll have to enter a third time near the end of the game, when the studio is deserted. Following the same logic, you end up finding the shelter, and inside you'll battle for the Shadow Mantle. I'll be covering all this in way more detail very soon in a video, so stay tuned for that. Number 16. The Roaring Knight's appearance has everyone thinking they're one of the holidays, mainly because of their horns. Some argue it's Carol, as she's mentioned to use a katana which can be seen in the kitchen. However, many believe the Roaring Knight's weapon is a bat, broken from use, since the computer belonging to Des, Noelle's unseen older sister, describes her carrying a broken bat. This would explain why her guitar has the code for the fort, and why Carol helps them so much. Number 17. Even with the mantle, beating the knight is a very, very tough task, something Gaster, or what seems to be him, is apparently aware of. Many players, after trying to beat the Roaring Knight and restarting after several attempts, encountered the message, "Very interesting, your defeat is guaranteed," and yet you persist. If you have enough determination to try one more time, then, shall we hasten it? Tidbits like this have revived the theory that WD Gaster is the game's developer. Number 18. Another thing data miners found was Des, or what's believed to be her representation. As we saw, on the sword route, we could find a character with Noelle's powers who previously had a reindeer sprite placeholder. Interestingly, they found another, completely black reindeer sprite. This was also used as a placeholder for an enemy that mimics your movement near the end of that route. They even found it had full animations ready to be used, and if we defeat the knight in chapter 3 and check on Toriel before following Suzy, it'll mention her face is contorted by anguish. Also, if we lose to the knight, they'll say, "Sleep soundly." Number 19. And another reason the knight has caused so much buzz is that beating them doesn't stop Undyne from being taken, nor does it change much about the ending. The knight turns into a sphere that many compare to a baseball. After a few black screens, Suzy and Raze end up defeated. The knight places their weapon on Chris's shoulder, and Chris kneels as if being knighted for a job well done. Number 20. This chapter confirms that the king, chapter 1's antagonist, was using the Shadow Mantle, which abandons him when Chris defeats him. It apparently returns to Sean, but many have no idea how it ended up in Chris's room. Some claim it involves Shaun Cat, a character who appears for a few seconds during Chapter 2 when we enter the basement to find Neil Spamton's body. It's actually possible he followed Chris to Castletown, got the mantle there, and ended up leaving it in their living room. Number 21. Some pretty interesting unused dialogue has also been found in the code. In it, someone talks about dreaming of entering a dark world only for the door to close behind them, trapping them. They wander, unsure if it's a dream, losing all track of time. They stop needing food and water, unable to distinguish between being awake or asleep, accompanied by a dark silence, except for a roar, a noise they sometimes hear that makes them feel like someone is listening. All this could reference Gaster and his fusion with the core, as his followers tell us in Undertale. But if you pay close attention, it's more likely Dez, who might have gotten lost in a dark world, and that her mother Carol, who by the way has still not appeared, is using the Knight's power to create roaring dark worlds in an attempt to find her daughter. Number 22. Another thing found in the data is an unused third Tenna game board level. Curiously, Tenna's show gets interrupted as he's preparing for this level. It was possibly unfinished in time, and many of its elements ended up in the sword route. The map is quite advanced with question sections, enemies, and an ending where Tenna increases the number of questions to a ridiculous amount. But thankfully, Susie throws yogurt at the controls, stopping the game. Number 23. Undyne shows up to save the day before the Knight can get Rousey. Remember, Chapter 2 ends with Toriel calling the police about the tires Chris slashed, and although Undyne always seemed to treat talk of Dark Worlds as a joke, she ended up having powers similar to her Undertale counterpart. And get this, super juicy detail. They found unused dialogue from her where, looking through the shadow crystal, for a few seconds it seemed like we were seeing Undyne frozen in ice. This could have confirmed the Holiday's involvement if it had been kept in. Number 24. When Tenna takes control of the game and puts the heroes through modified minigames, we see that in the Waiter game, only fireballs fall. The supposed diners emerge from a Mario-like pipe and enter another. Their sprites completely blacked out. Although it's been confirmed these are all Ice-E heads, when the minigame ends, Tenna implies they're all very sleepy, suggesting Ice-E bored them to sleep even though you couldn't really tell what they were. Number 25. Another thing that stands out is that Guitar Hero style song they have to play. There are already a bunch of versions with vocals online, but the curious thing is, while the lyrics seem to be about a fiery, action-packed brawl, even mentioning a bat to go fight with, the lyrics completely change when Rousey sings it. Instead of when the heart's demon cries, he sings when the happy heart smiles. Instead of when all hope starts to fade, he sings when your cat slowly sighs. Or instead of we will end them tonight, he sings with your friends fly a kite. This not only confirms that Rousey has no problem lying as long as it keeps people from worrying, but it's something that gets reinforced in the next chapter with his knowledge of the prophecy. Number 26. The Dark Nurse serving Tenna can't leave because they're bound by a contract. To recruit the Shadow Guys, you need to spare 25 of them. But Toby Fox, being a huge Ace Attorney fan, presents us with the ultimate bureaucratic loophole. Just shred the contracts with a lawnmower. With that, everyone is free from Tenna, and even the last contracted Shadow Guy quits and heads to Castletown. Number 27. Rivik is a frog found in Chapter 3 who likes dusty places and dislikes imposters. This is because he's super similar to Rabbix, the dust bunnies that reveal their true form after you blow the dust off them, who have been around since Chapter 1. You can actually clean the dust off Rivik until he becomes a Rabbik, confirming they're the same thing. Some just prefer a rabbit form and others prefer a frog form. Number 28. Toby already hinted that this chapter would be less story focused and more about gameplay, and it shows. In the final battle with Tenna, he says that the Roaring Knight told him to just keep the heroes busy. In exchange, he'd get all the viewers he could ever want. Interestingly, he seems to distinguish between the Roaring Knight and just the Knight, attributing the fountain's opening to the latter. Remember, we all saw Chris open that fountain. Tenna's goal wasn't to fill the world with darkness or anything like that, which makes it seem like Chris opened the fountain just to hang out and have a good time with Susie and Rousey. Even Tenna claims that Chris knows the real reason they've all been playing. Number 39. There's a third Tenna minigame, besides the food delivery and Guitar Hero sim, Monster Movie. In this one, Susie is dressed up as Susie Zilla, dangling from a rope to destroy everyone attacking Tenna. It's worth noting that this is one of the hardest games to get an S rank on. The final attack doesn't stop until the statue is destroyed or you get 800 points. If that happens, the annoying dog makes another appearance to destroy the statue himself and end the game. But as much as I've tried to get it or find gameplay of someone who has, I haven't seen it, so it might just be a false rumor. We dare you to confirm it. Also, many have linked the appearance of one of the bosses to Spamton's head, reinforcing the idea that Tenna admired the mailman. Number 30. The Shadow Guys hide a couple of interesting secrets. It's possible to act and shoot at them. If you hit their hat, there's a chance the Shadow Guy will appear with long ears. A reference to The Simpsons, as it was originally planned for Marge to hide a pair of rabbit ears under her hair, from Matt Groening's Life in Hell comic strip. And although the idea never made it into the show, it did appear in The Simpsons arcade game. You can also shoot their socks, which is a reference to the phrase knock someone's socks off. Number 31. Although the changes in Chapter 3 are small if you're continuing from a Snowgrave route save, Rousey has one very peculiar line change. At the end of the second game board, when he asks Chris who they'd like to go to the festival with, you can say Noelle. On a normal route, he says that if Susie goes, Noelle will surely go too. If you pick this option after Snowgrave, Rousey's tone changes completely. He says that's a bad choice, then immediately tries to correct himself, tweaking the phrase to say that Noelle wants to go with Susie. And since Chapter 4 confirms Rousey knows the prophecy and everything that will happen, him telling Chris it was a bad choice could be the trigger to continue the weird route in Chapter 4. Number 32. Man Country, the place where you find the guy who gives you the third egg, has drawn attention because he can give you his schedule. On Thursdays, he sells donuts. On Fridays, he throws leftovers in the trash. On Saturdays, he lets them cool on the windowsill, and on Sundays, he harvests his wheat. These are clues for where to find the eggs in the chapters. Chapter 1 takes place on Thursday, and you can find an enemy selling donuts in the forest where you later find the egg. The dumpster refers to the dumpster room in Chapter 2, with the tree graffiti. This suggests that on Sunday, the day of the festival, the egg will be found somewhere related to harvesting wheat. Number 33. If during the first game board, instead of waiting to unlock Lancer to dry up the lake, you drink a lot of the water, it will eventually dry up, desiccating all the trees in the area. When you get to the croissant, Susie throws Ralsei into the sand instead of the usual water. This triggers a super old school reference, with him yelling that he's in sand and asking if anyone will help him. Tenna then says he hopes they paid attention during the quicksand conference. This is a callback to a joke from over 10 years ago where Toby shared an image of an anime girl sunk up to her torso in quicksand, claiming it was his lecture on quicksand. Number 34. Tenna's motive for doing everything he can to keep the heroes in his dark world is revealed in a flashback. He recounts how everyone used to gather to watch him, but one by one, they lost interest. This is super interesting because we see the silhouettes of Torio, Asgore, Carol, Rudolph, Azriel, Chris, and Noelle. The first to leave is Des, then her mother, then Asgore, Noelle, Rudolph, and Azriel, leaving only Chris and Torio. This reinforces the idea that something happened with Des that changed the family. Tenna even seems to hate family fights. Number 35. Another very strange thing about the Shadow Guys is that not all of them have rabbit ears under their shadows. You can find one with cat ears during the Rules card battle. This might not seem important at first, but in Chapter 4, a final boss reveals the Mikes, Darkners who have disguised themselves as Mike, so Tenna has someone to talk to. Interestingly, Mike Cat is a disguised Shadow Guy. However, Mike Cat's appearance is very different from what we see right when Ralsei explains the rules of how objects come to life in Dark Worlds. There, we see a creature with the same face as Mike Cat, but a body more like Endogyne, an amalgamate from Undertale. This has led to the theory that Mike Cat is this figure that looks like a silhouette of multiple cats. Perhaps all the cat-eared Shadow Guys combine to form this dimension's version of an Endogyne. Number 36. During the battle with Tenna, the scenes will vary with multiple minigames that change every few seconds. This is a direct reference to the WarioWare series of games, where you have to complete short microgames at an increasingly fast pace. Number 37. There's a secret room inside the TV studio. At the prize machine, where it's possible for the annoying dog to appear as a prize, if you entered the exact amount of 1,225 points, the game freezes for a second and sends the group to a strange maze-like room. You can find a blue gumball machine in this room, and interacting with it gives you a dark triangular object. You can't hold it and drop it, and then the game tells you can't find it anymore. You can't find Chris's hand. Many suspect the numbers are the date for Christmas, 1225, and relate to Des, and that this disappearance of Chris's body could have trapped her in a dark world. Number 38. The Shadow Mantle is a mystery in Deltarune, but this chapter seems to give us a bit more info on it. Data miners found that during its battle, the boss-themed Nightmare plays, leading many to believe that's its true name, though it could just be a reference to a boss from Zelda Link's Awakening where a villain with the same name and a very similar appearance to the Shadow Mantle appears. Number 39. The first time Susie goes to see Tenna on her own, if Chris keeps his eyes open, instead of imagining what's happening, Ralsei will try to start a conversation, and the only option is to talk about his face. If you say you've seen it before, he gets nervous, says it's his face, and knows it looks like someone else's. Though he doesn't specify, it's clear he means Azriel, Chris's older brother. If you tell him his face is unique, he blushes. He warns you that he's not a light nerd despite his resemblance to monsters, that he's a shadow, and it all depends on how you see him. If you tell him he's cute, he blushes so hard that he uses his ears to cover his face. Number 40. Not only does it seem like amalgamates might appear in Deltarune, but many believe the Goners have already shown up in this chapter. In Mantown, the Rudens that appear mention they are colorless copies, but that Chris has put effort into coloring them. One of the Rudens claims they are 7 aces that Chris copied to cheat at a game, and now they're stuck in that world. You can look through some binoculars and see that in the distance, there is no color. Number 41. The Goners in Undertale are a set of mysterious, grayscale, and seemingly erased versions of existing monsters, intrinsically linked to the mystery of W.D. Gaster. It's implied Chris made copies of the aces to cheat, but it's possible they did it to copy the Darkners and figure out how to save copies of their friends, preserving their color so they don't end up like Goners. However, the colorless horizon and the man's warning that the place will soon be gone suggest that no matter what, copies always lose their color. Number next. The video might be over, but the fun facts keep coming. In the next episode, we'll kick off a new series, breaking down every curiosity, secret, detail, and Easter egg from Deltarune Chapter 3, starting with the opening scene and Antenna's introduction. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the comments. I always read them.